here with Wendy Wesley again in my kitchen, my friend and fellow dietitian, and we are talking about all things nutrition. We had such a great conversation last time, and we wanted to join together again and talk about some of these big topics that we get questions from in our practices every single day. So, Wendy, we talked the other night and you had gone out to eat and you said that you were feeling the sodium. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I went out to a great local restaurant here in where I live, and the next morning I woke up and I could feel the swelling in my fingers. And I don't wear any rings, but other clients I work with, they feel it in their rings, but I could really feel it in my fingers. And I just went to bed with kind of a malaise because I ate too much. I'm not used to being that full. That was almost like a Thanksgiving full. Yeah. And then the next morning, I'm dearly for it in a little GI distress, and definitely I could feel the water retention in my fingers. Definitely.
I'm super sensitive to that too. I take my rings off at night, my wedding ring off at night, and if I've had high sodium and I go to put it back on, half the time I can't, get it over my knuckle.
Yeah.
And I just got back from vacation, so my family went to the Big Island in Hawaii, and we were gone for 6 days, which was awesome. And we were super active, and I made great selections while we were there. There was plenty of fruit and fresh food. But let me tell you, I weighed before I left, which is a standard practice of mine. And then I weighed when I came back, and I was up 6 pounds. And it wasn't because I made unhealthy choices necessarily, but it was the sodium. I mean, it just has an effect on me, and it lingers for days and days and days. And it takes, forever to get rid of. And so when I got home, I just got right back into my habit of healthy eating. And 5 days later, I was back to my baseline weight. So I think you just have to be diligent when we eat out, right, to get right back into the saddle with our normal routine.
Yeah. And this is also an important piece of mindfulness is I say, when you go out and you have a restaurant meal, you get on the scale the next morning, and if it's up 3 or 4 pounds, I said, I want you to know that's not body mass. Right. Nobody gains or loses 3 or 4 pounds body mass asleep overnight. Yes. It's water. And I want you to just say, now, what was last night's dinner about? And what am I going to do today to get this water off? And there's a couple of things. Fluid pushes fluid. Drink lots of fluid. I know you mentioned last time we talked some potassium. Get out and move your body. And just know that all is not lost. Don't lose hope. Don't throw out the program. Stay the course.
Yeah,
stay the course, right?
I think so many women are just stressed out by the scale, and I always say it's just a piece of data. It has no more bearing than your sleep, than your energy level, than your bowel motility. It's on the same level with all of those things, your energy especially. So if you notice those things increasing, then you're probably moving in the right direction. So when I get on the scale after vacation and I see I'm 6 pounds up, I think, wow, the salt really affected me. Not that I love it, but I know that that's just, a fluid fluctuation. And yes, I was talking about potassium last time, and the sodium potassium pump. And we know, because we learned that years ago in school, that, water follows salt, and salt follows potassium naturally out of our body. So I know on those days when I wake up and my wedding ring is tight, I need to throw in something high in potassium. Kale, greens are great for that. A banana's quick and easy. Avocado, really high in potassium, and that's going to help expel that water naturally, which works great for me, and I think many, many others. So,
and I teach a lot of cardiovascular nutrition, and I talk a lot about salt. And one of the things I always teach is the top 5 sources of salt in the American diet, and this is according to the CDC. And the number 1 is breads and rolls. And my hypothesis is that some Americans eat breads and rolls every single day. And surprisingly, breads and rolls have a lot of salt. And if you're putting butter on that, and it usually butter is a salted product, and what we typically, that's just salt on top of salt. Number 2 is pizza, which that makes a lot of sense to me because it's typically 4 layers of salt: crust, sauce, cheese, toppings. And one way to reduce the salt is to choose a thin crust pizza and vegetable toppings. And you could shave off as much as 50% of the sodium just by doing those 2 things: thin crust, vegetable toppings. The other number 3 per the CDC is sandwiches. Again, there's that layering effect. bread, mustard, mayonnaise, cheese, meat, right? Maybe
on it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Subway it's a salt bomb. It's all layers of salt. Real quick, number 4 is cold cuts. Those are, ham, turkey. People say, oh, isn't turkey better than? I'm like, well, better than. If you want to consume lower sodium, your better choice is roast beef. Your worst choice is turkey. Turkey it has the most salt of all the deli meats, and roast beef, believe it or not, is the lowest. And then 4th on the list is soups. 1 can of Campbell's soup is 100% of the salt that a heart patient needs an entire day, 24 hours. So there, I'll get off my salt.
And I agree with you. I always say with soups and things like that, dilution is the solution.
Yes. So that's so good.
If you're going to use a can of soup, how can you dilute it? Either you need to pour out some of that fluid and displace it with milk or water, or better yet, maybe add some grains, some rice or some whole wheat pasta or something to dilute the sodium, some other low sodium food in there, probably a natural grain. Pasta would probably still likely have salt. But you were talking about salt, and I knew we were going to talk about salt. So I brought out bread from my freezer. So I have some Ezekiel bread, raisin bread here, and some Dave's Killer bread. Truth be told, both of these are in my pantry, but I was like, let me just read off the sodium in these, because the Ezekiel bread, and I almost need glasses to see the marker, is 60 milligrams per slice. So 60 milligrams per slice, or 2%. And as we learned last time we spoke, we want to keep it under 20%. And then this one is 115 milligrams and 5%. So it doesn't seem like 5 to 2 is that big of a difference, but when you see it in milligrams, 60 to 115, when you're trying to watch your salt, that's a lot. And like we talked about last time, the more salt you eat, the more storage capacity in your cell you have for triglyceride, for fat. You're just stretching out your cells. I don't know about you, but I don't want any more fat storage. So we'll get rid of those. And that leads us into another topic, which we both hear every day in our practices, and that is, what do I watch when I want to be healthy and lose weight? Do I have to track every single thing? Is tracking necessary? Or are there certain things that I can watch that are going to help me be healthier? And I know we're on the same page about this, so I'll let you bust into this.
My first 2 interventions when I'm working with a new client, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into your pantry or fridge. I want you to find 3 items, and I want you to evaluate them for added sugar. And then when we talk next, I want you to report back, and let's talk about the added sugar. Let's find it on the food label, because our U.S. government gave it to us. Consumers asked for it, and the U.S. government gave us that little line on the nutrition facts label that says added sugar. And then I also tell them I want you to find some food in your pantry or your fridge, and I want you to look at the fiber content. So we're just going to drill down on sugar, fiber, sugar, fiber, sugar, fiber. And because I think, and I've found this to be true, when you increase fiber, added sugars automatically come down, micronutrients automatically jack up. And you're not even just focused on 3 things. You're just focused on one thing. And it's the F word, like you said last time. Word, you're focused on, how do I get more fiber into my diet? Micronutrients up, added sugar goes down.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know. And saturated fats is another one that I threw on here. A lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to watch my sugar and I'm going to watch my fiber, but then they don't watch their saturated fats. And I'm like, you sort of have to watch all of those. I mean, I agree. Start with the added sugar for sure. The guideline is that women should have no more than 6 teaspoons added sugar a day, and men no more than 9. That's 24 grams for women. I was working with a new client earlier, and she had taken just a couple bites of a organic type sorbet, and it had 42 grams of sugar in a single serving cup. And I said, do you realize how much sugar that is? I mean, she's going to be starting in my group this week, but I mean, that is a lot of sugar for one little serving. And sometimes we don't even notice that or look at it. And so that is definitely something to always look at if you're bringing a packaged food into your house. I totally agree. And then fiber, we talked about the F word. Yeah, I love fiber. That's a foundational food for both health and fat loss. I know we both agree on that. I mean, nutrient density when you eat fiber is so high. I mean, the nutrient load is so high in fibrous foods, and the caloric load is so low. So if there are others out there like me that want to feel satisfied and we like a decent amount of food, because if I see a tiny little serving, before I even tried it, I'm like, I'm going to be hungry, which probably isn't the case every time, but just my eyes are always hungrier sometimes than maybe I need to be, or they need to be. But you get a bigger serving when something is full of fiber. So it's a win-win. And where do we find fiber? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains. And that leads us into our next conversation about summertime fruits. You brought this one up, which I thought was so great.
Yeah, summertime is the best season for fruit. Not the only season, but definitely the best season for fruit. It's in season, and it's I'm not going to say cheap, but it's definitely less expensive because this is harvest time for melons, the cantaloupe, the watermelon, honeydew. And we're also in harvest season for our stone fruits, cherries, nectarines, peaches, just lovely, gorgeous, colorful fruit. And then we're also in season for our berries, our blueberries, maybe strawberries in other parts, because February in Florida is strawberry season. So that's when I'm just pushing strawberries hard, but lots and lots of berries are in season in the summertime. So I always say, people say, oh God, what about all that sugar in that fruit? And I say, full stop. I even said this to a doctor the other day at the hospital. He got a chuckle. I said, no one's in a bed at this hospital because of too many blueberries. And he said, exactly. Oh God, you're right. You're right. No one's here because of too much fruit. So eat the fruit. There's a natural shut off. It's because it's full of water and full of fiber. And you get to a point and you say, I have had enough and I feel fantastic. And that's the beauty of fruit.
Yes. It's so true. And there's so much fiber in fruit, and berries are the highest. I mean, berries, pound for pound, give you the most amount of fiber. But I love watermelon, and I've been eating a ton of it. It does have sugar in it, but it has fiber. So the way that sugar is delivered into our bloodstream is so different than if we go and we eat a granola bar. And I see that a lot where I have clients that say, I can't eat fruit, I'm pre-diabetic or I have unstable blood sugar, but then on their food tracker, maybe I see, or maybe they tell me that they've had a granola bar. And I'm like, let's think about this. You're putting aside a natural food with fiber for something that's been processed. Now you've introduced added fat, added sodium, and processing. So, and usually some pro-inflammatory ingredients anytime we're dealing with processed foods. So, and I pulled a statistic too, and I forgot to mention it earlier, but I'm going to mention it because it was just astonishing to me that the average American gets 75% of their sodium from processed foods. 75%. So I'm sure you've heard this before, but I don't put salt on my food. It's not what we salt our food. It's what your food is being cured in, smoked in, and all those other processing tools. So it's really important to pay attention to sodium on the label, increase your fiber. And it really is possible to retrain your tongue, right? That's another one.
It is. I knew a woman who had a massive heart event, and so her doc said, got to cut the salt. So she radically cut the salt. She tells this story. She puts a Lay's potato chip on her tongue, and it burned her tongue. And so and she said, I changed my tongue for salt because I used to love these, and now I can't. My mouth will not tolerate them. Another client who was addicted to Dr. Pepper, her words, not mine. She had prediabetes. And she said, I know there's a problem because when I eat fruit, it's not sweet enough for me. She said, Dr. And so we went through a retraining process. And so now she's a fruit eater and no longer has prediabetes. So she's very, very happy about that. She was very intuitive. She knew. Yeah. So we can train up and train down our tongue for sugar and salt. In this world of processed food that we live in, many people's tongues are hyper trained for salt and sugar.
Yes. These foods are made to be hyper palatable and make you release more dopamine and make you crave more of that food so that those companies make a ton of money off of you. They're hijacking your taste buds. And I think there's so many other alternatives out there in terms of seasoning. Every time we use a fresh herb in a food, we increase our phytonutrients, which increases our immunity and our ability to affect chronic disease development. But even if you're using dried spices, which I use a ton of the time too, the flavor is there. Mrs. Dash has come a long way. They used to have one variety. Now I think they have like 15. So if you don't like figuring out, seasonings for your food, that's a great place to start. You can just grab that and start seasoning your food. But I agree with that. And then I know we were also going to talk about insulin and it being a fat storing hormone. And I think that this is so important for people to understand, because so many people have been misinformed by various, outlets, that they need to eat 5 or 6 small meals a day to lose weight. And that just secretes more and more and more insulin. And whenever we're secreting insulin in those moments, we are fat storing. And so the more often we eat, the more often we're secreting insulin, the more often we're fat storing, which is working against what we want for our body. And I'm sure you have the same experience in your practice.
I do. I see it in a lot of my clients who are late night eaters. So they never really enter a place where their body taps into stored glycogen. We store glycogen in the liver and we store it in the muscles. And when we don't have food on board, our body says, I need a little bit of sugar to do my work. And so it taps in and it taps in. But if you never kind of enter this place where you are without food or just letting the body digest, insulin is always high because you're always putting food in the system. And I see this with my late night eaters.
Yeah. I say this a lot with my clients. We can actually go 30 days without food. I know it seems crazy, not that we necessarily need to. We can go 30 days without food, folks. We can, but we can only go 3 days without water. So usually half of the time when we're eating these 5 or 6 meals a day, it's because we're thirsty. So drink. I mean, you should be drinking half your body weight up to 100 ounces in hydration daily. So many people are walking around dehydrated and thinking they're hungry. Or, like you said, tapping into our glycogen stores in our liver and our muscles in order to stay insulin sensitive, which is what we want. We want our cells to respond to our insulin. We need to get sleep. For goodness sakes, 7 hours a night is the recommended to stay insulin sensitive. If you're getting 4 or 5 hours or staying up till 2 a.m. watching shows and then, snacking and then eating, that's not doing anything for your long-term health or weight loss. And I see that a lot too, people staying up all night. And I was going to mention just a couple new things, talking about water. I recently tried these at the urging of my friend Chris, and it's called Tea Pigs. Kind of a funny name, but these are cold brew pouches that you put in water. So I have a lot of clients who like soda. You put this little pouch, which is all natural, into a water jug, 32 ounces, and it flavors it and gives you a little bit of flavor without adding any bad ingredients. And it's super, makes it super easy to stay hydrated when you like what you're drinking.
I like that. I wonder, what is it about the tea that makes it steep in cold water? Because that's the perennial problem with that. Because I love iced tea, I love it, but I have to heat it up and cool it down, and then that can be dangerous too, as you know. That iced tea is one of those HACCP problems. The bacteria loves iced tea.
Yes, and I don't know. I'll have to read why it actually steeps, but it does. I mean, it will take about 20 minutes for it to steep really well, but it will steep in cold water. One thing that I noticed is that the particles are super fine. Okay. So I don't know, they're almost powdered. I don't know if that helps it to disperse.
I bet it does.
That's one thing that I do. Another thing is just plain coconut water, which is a natural electrolyte. So sometimes if I'm, working out really hard and feeling like I'm dehydrated, I'll do a little bit of plain coconut water or put that into something else. But
yeah. Well, I have one of those big glass jars, and I will take cut fruit, cut melon, even cut herbs, cilantro, watermelon, berries, and put it in the water jug and keep that water jug in the fridge.
Yes.
So you open the fridge, and I'm a real believer in arranging your fridge. So when you open it, you are invited to grab the things that will nourish you and meet your goals, and keep that other stuff either out of the house. That's the first line of defense. Just don't bring it in the house. But if it's in the house, let's put it in the back of the cupboard or the back of the fridge, and let's put that really, really awesome, colorful, nutrient dense stuff right in the front. And so a big jug of water that's infused with fruit is fantastic. And the other thing is, the cheapest way to buy fruit is to buy the whole melon. Today, I bought a gorgeous watermelon for $3.99. I love summer, right? Where else are you going to get but summertime, a beautiful watermelon? So it's in my fridge right now. My intention is to cut it up, and I put it in a clear Tupperware, clear plastic. And then that goes, when you open the fridge, eye level, that's the first thing me and my son see. And so if you have kids and they say, Mom, I want a snack, Dad, I want a snack, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's cut melon in the fridge.
Yeah.
Also, you can get kids involved by giving them a melon baller. That's a safe way for them to participate in the preparation of the fruit. Or I've actually given kids a pie cutter, like one of those grocery store pie cutters, and they can saw the fruit. And of course, we all know that science shows that when kids participate in the preparation of food, they are more likely to eat it.
Yeah. I saw something recently that was really cute where they had cut the melon into triangles. They had done cantaloupe and watermelon, and they put a popsicle stick in it so the littles could hold it like that. And I was like, that's such a great idea. I also, when my melon gets a little bit too mushy to eat, instead of throwing it out, I will pulse it in my blender with a little bit of ice, and I make like a watermelon smoothie type of thing, and I add some chia seeds to it. That's really good too. But when you were talking about infusing your water, I love that idea. And one thing that I did one time, and it worked really well, and it just reminded me that I need to do it again, is I threw my watermelon rinds into a container of water. Instead of putting them into the garbage, I put the rinds into the water, and then I had spa water. I mean, it tasted great, and it was, like you said, it was made from waste that was going to go into the trash otherwise. So that's a great way to sort of use that up. Yeah. And I think this was another thing. I'm just kind of clicking through some topics here that we got questions on. And one of them was, why do we focus so much on protein and not enough on fiber? That's the $1 million question, right? If we all focus on fiber. Go ahead.
After person comes to me and they're really they're getting their protein. There, no doubt ever. A lot of the time it's too much protein, or worst case scenario, a personal trainer has told them to do 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. And they come to me trying to jam 160 grams of protein in a 24-hour period. And they say, it's really hard to do that. You think it's hard? Do you think it's hard to have 160 grams of protein in 24 hours? That's darn hard. So, people are very, and I'm curious about in the culture, in the health news, and how did that message get delivered to people that protein is so important? I want to flip that script, and I want people to become slightly obsessed in the same way they're obsessed with protein. I want them to be slightly obsessed with the fiber that they're getting into their system.
I do too. There's so many more benefits. And I agree with you. I have clients that are trying to get these crazy amounts of protein into their diet. And my first thought is, do you have any idea what you're doing to your insides? Because as we know, when you metabolize these proteins, they metabolize into acid. So usually my next question is, do you suffer from acid reflux, or do you find that you constantly need to clear your throat? And they say, yes. And I said, wow, it's because you're eating too much protein. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know is that protein, as it metabolizes, it shaves off into amino acids and ultimately some glucose. So a lot of times people forego carbohydrates to eat protein when they're really just getting their protein from their glucose from their protein, their carbs from their protein. So I think, it's just a lot of misinformation out there, and that's why it's good that we can chat about it. But always good to see you. And we'll have to come back next month and do this. It's hard to believe that it's been a couple weeks since we did it the last time. But if anybody out there watching has questions that they want us to tackle next time, you can email Wendy or I, and I will put our email addresses up here. I know Wendy has a program starting in August, and I actually have a program starting tomorrow, and then one in September. So we both are looking to help people get healthy and lose weight. So if you need some help, reach out to one of us, or if you just have a question, we'd love to help you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Always love being on.
Yeah. Enjoy the Florida sunshine and all your fruit.
I sure will. I absolutely will. I always do.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.